guys, Belle here. Today I wanted to talk about professions. Professions have seen many iterations over the last few expansions, including the more recent lowering of the skill cap per profession for BFA to 150. With some servers not seeing a high money-making yield versus the level of effort required, including the mats needed to make some of these items, it might be easy to overlook some useful personal benefits that professions offer currently, so I wanted to take some time to highlight those. First, let's talk about profession perks. For tailoring only perks, like all other armor crafting professions, you can craft personal epic cloth armor up to eye level 385 currently. I'm sure we're going to see an increase in item level as we go through the expansion and the item level cap increases. It's also true that gear is not really that hard to come by this expansion, but I find that this is quite useful for alts that are cloth wearers when trying to get their item level up to hop into heroic dungeons so that you can begin the gearing process. Tailors also have 3 useful personal cloak embroideries that you can choose from that have pretty great utility. The first one is going to be the Resilient Spell Thread. This actually prevents you from being dazed while walking or running in Kulteris or Zandalar. The second is the Discreet Spell Thread. This actually reduces the amount of threat your attacks and spells generate by 15%. This is also great for Mythic Plus dungeons, especially for the affixes like Skittish, according to Dr. J from our Method PogChamp MDI team, when I had a chance the week of BlizzCon to pick his brain about some tips and tricks. The third one here is going to be the Feathery Spell Thread. Now this is actually my personal favorite, mostly because falling off mountains is a thing. This does allow you to fall farther without taking damage. Most crafting professions do allow you to craft follower equipment. And for tailoring, you can actually craft the Rough Hooked Tide Spray Linen, which does give a chance to reward cloth from successful missions. These can also be bought and sold in the auction house, probably a good way to make a little bit of extra gold. And finally, for tailoring, I wanted to mention the embroidered deep sea bag. I'm sure everybody's heard by now, some of you probably already have it, which is the 32 slot bag. The current average price across the US and EU realms is about 10k per, give or take, though on my server, which is occupied by sadists, these are around 30 to 50k. Seriously guys, 30 to 50k for a bag, can you not? While bag making as a whole can be a pretty good use of tailoring across most expansions, especially with things like the Hexweave bags, which still in this expansion sell for 1 to 2k gold each on average, having tailoring on at least one alt that you run dungeons on this expansion so that you can get the Hydra Core will at least ensure that you can make these bags for yourself, alts, and some friends versus having to pay the auction house prices. Having these bags equipped versus, say, Hexweave, you actually get an extra 8 slots if all of your bags are using the embroidered deep sea bags. Also, not for nothing, making use of them for your bank bags gives an additional, multiply the 7, carry the 1, 28 slots total. That's 28 extra slots for your bank. While it may seem that the effort versus reward here is very minimal, if you're a hoarder like I do, those extra slots are absolutely priceless. For blacksmithing, again, here you can craft your own epic personal plate armor. Does go up to eye level 385 currently. I'm sure we'll see that increase as the expansion progresses. And you get 2 crafted follower equipments. The Platinum Whetstone, which increases your mission success chance by 5%, and the Storm Silver Spurs. This actually decreases your mission duration by 20%. There's also an item that was originally thought to have been removed from BFA launch called the Keg Orion Hammer. Now, it was thought that this was going to be something that blacksmiths were going to craft, yet there's no unlearned recipe in that tab currently. This item allows blacksmiths to instantly repair all of their gear once per hour. This item also gives you a chance to craft indestructible items basically on a proc. Every so many items you craft could potentially be indestructible. There's no info on how to get this, if it's going to be something that we craft, although my money's going to be on this is probably something that you're going to earn. Maybe you'll pick it up off a random mob or a rare. The item itself is still currently in game when you're looking up this item string, which means they haven't removed it. It could just be they're waiting for a future patch to make it obtainable, so make sure you guys keep your eye out for any data mining or anything related to this, because this is a pretty useful item. Finally, for blacksmithing, I want to mention 2 quality of life improvement items that blacksmiths can make, which are the Monel Hardened Stirrups. This allows you to interact while mounted, very similar to the Legion stirrups that we had This is perfect for world questing when you're in a hurry, especially when there is gathering world quests. And secondly, the Manel hardened hoof plates. This actually increases your mounted speed by 20%. You don't have to be a blacksmith to use these. You can buy these from the auction house, but honestly, the prices for these are absolutely ridiculous. Even last expansion's stirrups and hoof plates are pretty ridiculous in price. I personally prefer to be a self-starter and either make them myself or bribe a guildie. For leatherworking, there isn't a whole lot of personal perks here. However, again, you can craft the Epic Leather and Mail Armor, which goes up to eye level 385. And you get 2 crafted follower equipments here. The Amber Rallying Horn, which does increase the success chance of missions for each accompanying troop by 10%, and the Tempest Hide Pouch. This grants a chance to receive skins or hides from successful missions. Let's talk about alchemy. For some alchemy-only perks, you can craft currently 2 trinkets that increase the effects of healing and mana potions that you use by 40%. The first one is the Siren's Alchemist Stone. This is eye level 225. The second one is the Surging Alchemist Stone, which is eye level 300. Honestly, because these can't be equipped till 120, these aren't going to be super useful given the eye level. However, in patch 8.1, they are going to be adding upgraded eye level versions of these stones, which is going to be the Tidal Alchemist Stone, which is eye level 385, the Spirited Alchemist Stone, which is level 400, and the Eternal Alchemist Stone, which is eye level. You can also craft follower equipment, which is going to be the Potion of Herb Tracking. This does exactly what you think it does. It brings back herbs for successful missions. As an alchemist, you also get increased duration time on effects of elixirs and flasks that you have learned how to make. But just keep in mind that it's only on the ones you have learned how to make, so you are going to have to level through alchemy in order to be able to unlock ones that you use. And lastly here, I wanted to talk about Transmute Meat to Pet. What a time to be alive where we can actually give the meats and get the various pets. This, of course, is similar to the Legion Transmute and will function exactly the same way. Doing this transmute gives you the ever-popular Quivering Sack, which contains a ton of common pets and 4 rare pets that you have a chance of getting. In my research, the drop chance of getting these pets isn't super great, but I imagine the more you do it, the better it gets. You can cage them, sell them, trade them, boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. Hopefully, you get lucky with getting one of these 4 rare pets. Now, the 4 pets are the Baby Krog, the Wind-Up Frog, which does turn into the Gear Spring Hopper, the ever-popular Ball of Tentacles, which gives you Slippy, and my personal favorite, the Undulating Blue Sack, which does give you the Blood Feaster Larva. For Enchanters, one of the perks that you get is wrist enchants that affect your Hearthstone. There's actually 3 of them. The first one is the Cooled Hearthing. This reduces the cooldown of your Hearthstone by 5 minutes. Safe Hearthing. Using your Hearthstone gives you an Absorb Shield while casting. This is great if you're out in the world. And Swift Hearthing. This increases the speed of your Hearthstone cast. The follower equipment that you get to craft here is going to be the Disenchanting Rod, because nothing is more disappointing than a Disenchanting Rod. This gives you a chance to actually receive enchanting dust from successful missions. In patch 8.1, they will be adding a new pet to craft. This is the Enchanted Tiki Mask, which is going to be a magic battle pet. For jewel crafting this expansion, not really any jewel crafting only perks, with the exception of the crafted follower equipment that you can make, which is the Kaleidoscope Lens. This does give you a chance to get gems back from successful missions. For engineering, I'm not going to say that engineers are the favorite by Blizzard, but I'm going to go ahead and say engineers are the favorite by Blizzard. For engineering this expansion, you can actually craft epic personal Azurite Goggles, which currently go up to eye level 345. If you have these equipped as well, you get an equip effect that increases your engineering skill by 20, which is great if you're trying to get that leveled up. These traits, while are useful, hold pretty true to the very whimsical nature such is engineering. There are several of them. Make sure you go to Wowhead to see the different possibilities that you could get for Azurite trait options, but I did want to highlight 2 of my favorites. The first one's going to be the Relational Normalization Gizmo. Who doesn't want to be normal? Just kidding, we're nerds, we're not normal. But this Relational Normalization Gizmo actually gives your spells and abilities a chance to grow or shrink the world. When you shrink the world, this grants your primary stat and maximum health for 10 seconds. Growing the World grants you haste and 50% movement speed for 10 seconds. My second favorite here is the Ricocheting Inflatable Pyro Saw. Your spells and abilities have a chance to hurl an RIP that bounces among 4 enemies. This does deal fire damage to each enemy. Beneficial spells have a chance to hurl a mechanized external needle dispenser, which does heal up to 4 allies. Now, earlier I mentioned that these Azurite Goggles go up to eye level 345. In patch 8.1, they will be adding upgraded eye level versions of these, which is going to be eye level 385, eye level 400, and eye level 415. Also for 8.1, they are adding the Unstable Temporal Time Shifter. This is going to be similar to the Ultimate Gnomish Arming Knife. It'll resurrect an ally with 60% health, 20% mana, and also is castable while in combat with a 10-minute cooldown. The offset to this is also has a chance to backfire, bringing the user to the brink of death. Depending on how often the backfire actually occurs, this could be pretty useful in Mythic Plus dungeons, especially if you don't have a combat res in your group. The 2 crafted follower equipments here are going to be the makeshift Azurite detector. This actually gives a chance to bring back Azurite from successful missions. And the second one here is going to be the Monolite Fish Finder. Gives a chance to bring back fish from successful missions. This one seems a little odd and a little out of place for me, but fish are fish. There are also 3 belt enchants that engineers can craft and use. The first one is the Personal Space Amplifier. This actually allows you to knock back your current target. It also shares a cooldown with potions. Second is the Miniaturized Plasma Shield. When used, creates an absorb shield around you for 10 seconds. And the third belt enchant here is going to be the Holographic Horror Projector. This actually allows you to fear an enemy within melee range for 5 seconds. And lastly, there are a lot of really cool devices that engineers can make this expansion. But my absolute favorite item that engineers can make, which I'm fortunate I have a guildie who knows that my DPS is negatively impacted in raid if my transmog is not on point, this is going to be the Deployable Attire Rearranger. Yeah guys, that's a mouthful. This handy little contraption actually allows for indoor transmogging in a pinch. Guys, I'm not gonna lie here, this completely changed my life. This does only last for 2 minutes, but I saved my set, so whenever I open the transmogger, since my set's saved, I just hit apply, boom, I'm done. You don't have to be an engineer to use these because you can buy them in the auction house super cheap. Literally, they're like 15 gold on my server. But maybe you want to be able to make them yourself. Either way, make sure that you have this on your must-have, make, or buy list because it is perfect. And lastly here, I want to make sure that we don't discount archaeology. I myself have always had the opinion that archaeology is relatively boring, isn't really something I've been super interested in, but in my research, there are a couple of rewards from the 2 types of BFA solves that give some pretty nice motivation to forge ahead. Now, I want to highlight 2 of them. For the Drust Archaeology Fragment solve, there is a notable rare reward, which is the Pile of Bones. This actually teaches the rare pet, the Restored Revenant. This little guy is pretty cute, but what I thought was cool about this is basically, we know Drustvar is really creepy, right? There's sacrifices happening in the woods, we're bringing the dead back to life, all kind of weird stuff's going on in Drustvar. With this, basically this little guy, the Drustvar learned that they could exhume and reanimate whatever they could find in the ground. Guys, did we learn nothing from watching Pet Sematary? Seriously.
Well, sometimes that is better.
But this guy's pretty cute, and if you're a pet collector, you'll want to add him to your collection. For the Zandalari Archaeology Fragment solves, I wanted to highlight a absolute, what I'm going to call a must-have rare reward. And that is the Sanguinating Totem Trinket. This trinket drains the health from an enemy, transferring it to the caster. It's on a 1.5 minute cooldown. This nifty little guy is eye level 300, but the kicker is it's account bound. This makes it useful for alts because it can be equipped at level 110. Once you no longer need the trinket at max level, you can send it to your other alts. Definitely worth the time to try to get this guy because you can use it throughout the expansion for leveling. Real quick, I wanted to highlight some benefits from having the Gathering Professions. The Gathering Professions, honestly, throughout an entire expansion, regardless of the expansion, it's a really good way to earn gold if you're already out in the world doing world quests or maybe you have some time to kill to farm. You You can sell this stuff on the auction house, and while the prices vary per server, and of course we have the undercutting sadists who have nothing better to do than put stacks of 200 for 5 gold, you still can usually make a pretty fair amount of money. I still make money off stuff from previous expansion. For herbalism, alchemy and inscription are going to benefit most by having this gathering profession either on your main or your alt, and you can also use the items gathered for world quest tournaments and warfront contributions instead of spending gold to buy them from the auction house. For fishing, cooking, and alchemy are going to benefit probably most from this. This does include transmuting. Then there's also midnight salmon. If you have the patience to fish them, they do sell for a lot of gold due to the rarity, and they're used in the Galley Banquet and the Bountiful Captain's Feast, which are used in Raid and Mythic Pluses. In 8.1, you can also have a leather worker make the Scarlet Herring lure, which you can attach to your fishing pole, which will also increase the chances of catching the midnight salmon. Again, you can use this stuff for World Quest tournaments and Warfront contributions. For skinning, leatherworking is going to benefit most from having this one. This does include getting mats needed for your leatherworker to be able to craft the Drums of the Maelstrom. The Drums of the Maelstrom can be used in the event you don't have a heroism or lust in your group. I always have at least 5 on me. For mining, engineering, and blacksmithing, of course, will benefit most from having this. You'll be able to use it for your World Quest tournaments, Warfront contributions, and also, again, selling ore throughout the expansion, while isn't $1 million except the first month of the expansion, you're still going to make a pretty fair amount of gold as we kind of progress through the expansion. With talking about these gathering professions, I wanted to make sure I mentioned efficient use of the Scrap-O-Matic 1000. The Scrap-O-Matic kind of was a game changer when it came to the way that we approach being able to get things for professions and mats. The reason being is because you don't necessarily have to have any of the above gathering professions that I mentioned to be able to get items that you need. This is something that makes use of the gear that you replace, especially when you're doing a lot of world quests and you have random throwaway gear. To that end, there is a fantastic add-on called Easy Scrap. This helps you scrap items in your bag quickly. You have an include list, an ignore list, you can add items to, and also has an automatic exclude for items that are in your equipment manager set, which is pretty great. It kind of saves you from yourself there. I also want to make sure I say scrap with caution, guys, because you don't want to accidentally scrap something that you were saving for later. Scrapping certain armor types does give mats according to what the armor weapon type is that's scrapped. You can use this when you're leveling whatever your professions are, because you can make the item, armor, weapons, and whatnot, and be able to throw them in the scrapper to at least get some of that stuff back. When scrapping, you also randomly get Expulsum, which is bind on pickup, similar to Blood Astar Garrison Legion. It's used for over 120 recipes and other items, and you get about 1 Expulsum per, I would say, 5 to 7 scrapped items. In addition to the items being added I mentioned earlier, there are a few more random items I wanted to talk about that are coming in patch 8.1, which will be live December 11th. The first is going to be an additional 100 stat food feast, which is the Sanguinated Feast. Perfect for your raid or Mythic Plus group. Second, Inscriptionists are going to be getting the Honor-Bound contract and the 7th Legion contract ability, which is something that we didn't get in the beginning of the expansion. Makes a lot of sense though, because those 2 specific reps, you really needed to go through the content to be able to get it. Again, since we're getting farther into the expansion, this is a great catch-up mechanic. If you're behind in rep, maybe you just started playing again, whatever the case may be, it's the perfect time to be able to seek these out, so don't forget. And the 2 new reagents that are coming for 8.1, one is the Title Core. You'll get this from Heroic and Mythic Kultiris and Zandalar dungeons. I'm hoping that this means that the Hydra Core drop rate will be increased since they're giving us another one. And second is the Breath of Wamsamdi. You're going to get this from the Battle of Dazar Alar raid. This is very similar to the Sanguicel that you can currently get in Uldir. This is used in several high-end recipes, but you can also use it to convert into Expulsum. In addition to all of that stuff, for 8.1, various mat costs for recipes across all professions have been decreased. I'm sure they're going to continue tuning and looking that as we go. That about covers the important things I wanted to highlight for professions. At this stage in the expansion, we're kind of getting into ulting territory, so I felt like it was a good time to get you guys thinking about other professions that you may want to take advantage of. I also want to hear from you guys about how you're feeling about professions so far in BFA. So make sure you comment below and tell me what you think. For more information about any of the professions mentioned in this video, I do have links to them below in the description, courtesy of Wowhead. Wowhead actually has a pretty robust guide in general for all the professions, so make sure you guys go check that out. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like. Also, if you're new to Method, make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the latest videos. That's it for me, guys, and as always, thanks so much for watching.